What's up guys, it's Aaron from GearUP and welcome to another episode, and I hope you guys are doing great. Now, if you were here last week, Soundcore's Spirit X2 and Dot 2 paid us a visit, and I ended up saying that those guys make really good exercise earbuds, and the fact that they cost only $80, that was a clincher right there. So not bad, Soundcore, not bad. But I started to wonder, what happens if you go further down the cost totem pole? Do they get exponentially worse, or could they be actually better? Because many years ago, for example, I bought my first couple pairs of true wireless earbuds for exercising from some reputable companies. But the sound was okay and the battery life was meh and the features were kind of missing. So I'm wondering, have things moved on? Have technology trickled down to the lower cost areas to actually make things pretty good? So to help us answer this question, I want to look at this guy, the Soundpeats Truewings workout earbuds. And the fact that these guys cost half the price of the Soundcores at $40, I'm wanting to know if this is actually good or do they suck? Let's find out after these messages. Let's do it, guys. Alright guys, before we take a deeper dive of the Truewings itself, I want to look at the packaging real quick, and this thing is pretty basic and simple, not much of an occasion to opening it really. And over in the back here you'll find that this thing is not recyclable, so something to take note of when you do decide to dispose of the box. And inside you'll find your usual documentation. Oh my goodness, my skin tone is really dark. That's what I get for being in the sun so much. But anyways, in the packaging, you'll find documentation and a couple of replacement ear tips. They're small, large, and the medium already installed on the earbud itself. And in the packaging, you also find this really pathetically short 6-inch long USB-C charging cable. Come on, Soundpeats. At this point in time, we should be getting a foot already. So it's kind of sad. Even though it's USB-C, it's really sad to see something so short. But anyways, let's talk about some high-level specs here of the Truewings itself. Now, man, this is really hard to film when it's so dark. It's $40 as we mentioned earlier. It has IPX7, guys. It's really pretty good. It has Bluetooth 5.0 that supports AAC and SBC, but unfortunately no aptX. It also supports mono mode, so you can use each earbud individually, but we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. Transparency mode is also included in this, which is pretty rare in this price range. There's no multi-point Bluetooth connection in case you're wondering. And battery life, on the other hand, guys, reminds me of the early days of true wireless earbuds. This thing only has 4 hours according to Soundpeats. 4 hours listening time on the earbuds themselves, and in fact I got around 3.5 hours with medium volume. At least the case adds another 18 hours though. So here is the charging/storage case, guys, and yes, it is thick and bulky, but really par for course for earbuds with an ear hook is just to accommodate that extra height. But that being said, this is better off living in your gym locker or backpack or whatever, except your pockets. And I'm going to guarantee that this is going to fail my bulge test later on, but we're going to do it just for fun anyways. Initial impressions of the plastic, this thing is really nice, matte black, much better than the Dot 2s from Soundcores that we looked at last week, so I like the feel of this right off the bat. There's a notch up front here to rest your thumb and finger to open the lid, and the lid is also magnetized, which is really rare to see, or kind of rare to see at this price range. Out back, you find the USB-C charging light and the USB-C charging port. And there's nary a creak among the hinges of the assembly itself. So it's really well made, guys. There's no wireless charging, as I mentioned earlier. And by the way, as you can see the plastics are collecting a lot of grease. So it is a fingerprint grease magnet. And also it collects scratches really easily. Look at this. I can do that and it's really marked it right there. At least it's kind of self-healing. If you rub it, it kind of disappears a bit, but you can still see the mark right there. Over on the insides, you find things like this really nicely molded top lid and materials that are pretty decent overall. The weakest part of this ensemble is really the hinge. It just flops around like this and doesn't lock in place. It would have been nice to see some kind of spring locking mechanism. There's matte black plastics here, and I'm not sure if you can see this. There's battery level lights, 4 of them right there, right down the middle, and piano black plastics. Come on guys, you know how much I hate these. They just attract grease and dirt and collect wax, in this case down the bottom. At least the cavity is wide enough for you to clean. There are 2 charging pins right there, and dropping in the earbuds are really simple. You just drop it in like that and the magnets do the rest. It's much easier than the X2 that I tested out last week as well. Now, that being said, the magnets are kind of weak sauce too. I can shake these and they just come out flying. So take note of these. When you do drop these, they're gonna go flying everywhere. You know what would be nice is if they offer these in different colors, because filming this black thing is really hard to point out the details for you guys. So I apologize ahead of time. I'm really trying to angle this in the right lighting so you can follow along. But let's start with the obvious, the ear hooks. These guys are prefixed like the X2 that we looked at last week. They're prefixed. That means they're not replaceable and you cannot bend them around your ear as like a Gumby toy. But the plastics that they use in this one is a little bit harder than the X2, so I don't see this deteriorating and turning gummy over time, but it does affect long-term comfort. I can wear this for maybe an hour and 15 before it starts to hurt me right there. And unlike the X2s where I can wear them for around 2 hours to 2.5 hours and be totally fine. Now, as you follow along the side here, you come down the body and there's the only seam right here that bisects the whole assembly, which is not bad for a $40 item. And down here is the logo, but also is the capacitive touch controls. Now, both the left and right side offer different controls, so bear that in mind as you use this in mono mode. At the front of the device, you see the charging contacts right there, and right next to that is the microphone port. And when you flip this over, you see the LED status light, which is actually covered by your ear when you wear it. So I kind of like that. It's an interesting touch. Over in the back here, you see the sound port that helps air escape when the drivers are running. It helps with staging and all that kind of stuff. And speaking of the drivers, they come with a 13.6 millimeter driver doing all the grunt work, and it's piped through this sound channel, and it's covered by mesh right there. I'm not sure if you can see that. Yeah, it's really dark. And the earbuds themselves, the ear tips themselves, not my favorite. They're neither the easiest or hardest to put on. I'm not going to bother it here, but yeah, it is what it is. One thing I do have to say about the materials though, like the case over there, these guys attract grease and also scratches really easily. You can see some scoring right there. I'm going to do this right here. And you can see my fingerprints or fingernails just left a mark right there. They do rub off a little bit, but bear this in mind, it's $40. You get what you pay for. It's not bad for what it is. It's really well built, decent materials, but in terms of longevity, it's gonna show some wear and tear pretty quickly. So guys, if you haven't heard already, I am trying to get to 5,000 subs, and only you can get me there. If you haven't already, then please consider subscribing down below and turning on the bell notification icon. So thank you in advance for your help, and get me to 5,000. Back to the program. Alright guys, we're out here doing the Bluetooth test now, and I have some music from the 7 Deadly Sins soundtrack playing on my Deezer in high fidelity on my Pixel, and I'm going to put the phone at the end of my deck right there. I'm going to walk this way and see when these guys, the Truewings, disconnect from the phone. If you've never seen the 7 Deadly Sins anime, that thing is pretty awesome. You should check it out. But anyways, we're going to keep walking right here, and where I'm standing right here at the end, from here to the end of my messy deck is around 25 feet. So we're going to keep walking around past line of sight, and this should start sputtering right about now. Around 30 feet is when it cuts out. So it's pretty much the norm. They're well within specs, but I'm going to keep walking until they completely die. How are you doing, guys? It's a nice day out. So it's completely dead around 40 feet. So it's not bad. You also can see how these guys fit on my ear. They're not bad. They're better than the X2 in terms of protrusion from the ear. So it looks really good. So let's move on to the mic test for phone calls. Let's do it. Okay, now let's test the mics on the Truewings to see how well they do for phone calls via Bluetooth. And I'm gonna head to the street right here and try to find some traffic to see how well they suppress sound while I talk, and you can hear from the audio samples how I sound like. You can comment down below what you think. I'm gonna switch between the G85 camera, which is still properly legit. Oh, here goes the bus. What do you think? I'm going to switch between the camera and the Truewings, and you can see how they compare. Of course, this is not scientific in any way, but at least it gives you a comparison. There comes another car. How does that sound while I talk? Earlier I tested this, and I was not impressed with the audio sample when it's noisy. Here comes a bunch of other cars, and we can compare it that way. Now, how's that? So, if you use these guys for phone calls, I suggest staying in a quiet environment. If you're on a busy street, just head somewhere else quiet too. It's just not going to work very well, and your voice will just start cracking up all the way. So Soundpeats, if you can include CVC or something, it does not advertise that they have CVC for this, so I don't know if they do. It's not a good implementation at all. But anyways, Soundpeats, back to the drawing board, guys. Now let's get into the positives, and my first favorite thing about the Truewings is, surprise surprise, and get these guys, it's the sound quality. Sure, I was not blown away by any means, but it did catch me off guard by the decent amount of detail and clarity these guys produce. They actually produce clean sounds. In the mids and the highs especially, it's happy living there. So it's not bad for $40. The only weak part of this whole ensemble is the bass. There's no bass, so Soundpeats,
where is the bass?
Because this is a pair of workout earbuds, people need it. Now, you can always go into the in-app equalizer and bump up the bass frequencies, but I only suggest doing that 1 or 2 dB up, because when you go any higher, it's just gonna muddy up the rest of the frequencies. So that's my little PSA right there. But otherwise, I'm really impressed with the sound, the amplification, the staging, everything is not bad. The next positive is that these earbuds are cheap, and I don't mean this in a negative sense, because for $40, it makes these guys budget friendly and pretty much expendable at the same time. And cheap in this case also doesn't mean a budget build, because it looks good and it feels good and it compares really well with the Soundcore Spirit Dot 2s that we looked at last week. Sure, if you scrutinize it a little bit closer, you will find some issues, but for $40, it's a pretty darn good value. Alright guys, now we've come to my favorite part, which is the negatives. Because, you know, I'm an old guy and I like to bark and complain about things. And that's what we do. The first one is bass, and we've already talked about that, so that gets a thumbs down right off the bat for being non-existent. Secondly, is probably worse than the first, is battery life, and we've seen this in a close-up earlier, where the earbuds get only a measly 4 hours of listening time. Soundpeats, what is this, 1986 or something? A earbud this size should be getting 6, 7, 8 hours easily, so 4 hours is just downright ridiculous. The last issue that I have with the Truewings and so many other True Wireless earbuds is with the touch controls. On these guys, they're just horrible. They're as numb as frozen squirrel turds and should be banned from the face of the earth, especially at this price point. It's just a gimmick and they should just stick with buttons, for crying out loud. So here are my final thoughts, guys. At a price of $40, the Soundpeats represent the low-cost exercise earbuds team pretty darn well, being a little above average in the water resistance and sound department. So at the end of the day, I give the Soundpeats Truewings a GearUP score of 6.5 out of 10. It's a great daily driver that you can take with you on the run or a bike ride or to the gym, and if you lose it or break it, meh, you're not too worried about it, and that's a great thing about owning something so low cost. Well, there you have it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I love you guys so much, and remember to come back next Friday for a new one. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to this channel. If you haven't heard, I'm trying to get to 5,000 subs and we're really close. I think we're like 1,500 away. So your help would be super appreciated. And if you haven't already, you can visit my Patreon page down below where you can buy me a cup of coffee or tea or something. And remember to thumbs up if you like this video and comment nicely down below. Well, that's all I got, guys. Remember to do something nice for somebody this weekend and show some love in the world. And remember to mask up as well. I'll see you next time, and you take care of yourself and God bless. Peace out, yo. Whoosh.